2020, just when the people were starting to wake up, realizing their histories were false, the world was not what they thought it was. The powers that be struck hard, threatened by this new awakening, creating an artificial scare that would rock the world and steer the masses in a new direction, in which most would be willing to surrender their rights to almost any authority figure. Even when these figures had no authority, people stayed in their homes, and when they went out, they wore masks, reducing their oxygen intake to dangerous levels, in the name of safety, letting their world fall apart and allowing the last of their liberties to be removed, with the false hopes and promises of a cure, while this very false and promising hope ushers in the destruction of our way of life. Most free nations have a type of constitution in which humans' rights are given by God, and no man can impose one's will on another without violating this gift from God. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And I'm not a man of violence, but when it comes to laws that violate these very basic rights, I encourage absolute disobedience. Disobedience to the imposition of compliance to mandates created via lies and propagated by media propaganda. And if people don't stand together and begin to address the real enemy, then we'll forever be enslaved. And until people realize that there are no black and white humans, only shades of one race, we'll forever be divided and pinned against each other, unable to see the real threat. And who is the threat? All those that would impose their will on us and violate our free will, a right that was given by no man and in which no man has the right to take. I encourage you all to stand up against the oppressors in all forms. And what can I say about the current times? Quickly, the media has shifted the focus and seems to have successfully divided us once again with nothing but lies. If anything good has come of all of this, it would be that everybody is focused, at least mostly focused, on the bigger picture. Perhaps everybody has snapped out of the bubble that in one way or another we all lived in. And I was recently watching an upload by a fellow truth channel who shared a JFK speech given in Canada, May 17th of 1961. And it really seemed to pertain to the times that we're living in now. And the advice he gives pertains as well. And it was the first time I'd heard the speech, and I can only imagine that for many others, it will also be a first. And not only do I think it's important to retain the wisdom and words of great people in the past, but even more so, the words of those who were taken out. Such ideas and the words used to express them should be drawn upon in times of distress, for their wisdom is timeless. And he begins the speech by addressing the Canadians and a feeling of neighborliness, a common border. And I'd like to forget about this speech being between America and Canada, and rather representing the commonality with our fellow humans, our neighbors, in actuality and metaphorically. So here we go. We share more than a common border. We share a common heritage, traced back to those early settlers who traveled from the beachheads of the maritime provinces and New England to the far reaches of the Pacific coast. Henry Thoreau spoke a common sentiment for them all. Eastward, I go only by force. Westward I go free. I must walk towards Oregon and not towards Europe. We share common values from the past, a common defense line at present, and common aspirations for the future, our future, and indeed the future of all mankind. Geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. Economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. Those so joined together, let no man put us under. What unites us is far greater than what divides us. The issue and irritants that inevitably affect all neighbors are small deeds in comparison with the issues that we face together. Above all the somber threat now posed to the whole neighborhood of this continent, in fact the whole community of nations. But our alliance is born not of fear, but of hope. It is an alliance that advances what we are for, as well as opposes what we are against. We do not seek unanimity that comes to those who water down all issues to the lowest common denominator, or to those who conceal their differences behind fixed smiles, or to those who measure unity by standards of popularity and affection instead of trust and respect. We are allies. This is a partnership, not an empire. We are bound to have differences and disappointments, and we are equally bound to bring them out into the open, to settle them where they can be settled, and to respect each other's views when they cannot be settled. Thus ours is the unity of equal and independent nations, co-tenants of the same continent, heirs of the same legacy, and fully sovereign associates in the same historic endeavor, to preserve freedom for ourselves and all who wish it. To that endeavor, we must bring great material and human resources, the result of separate cultures and independent economies. And above all, the endeavor requires a free and full exchange of new and different ideas on all issues and all undertakings. For it is clear that no free nation can stand alone to meet the threat of those who make themselves our adversaries, that no free nation can retain any illusions about the nature of the threat, and that no free nation can remain indifferent to the steady erosion of freedom throughout this realm. It is equally clear that no Western nation, on its own, can help those less developed lands to fulfill their hopes for steady progress. And finally, it is clear that in an age where new forces are asserting their strength across this plain, when the political shape of the hemispheres are changing rapidly, nothing is more vital than the unity of humanity. And so, my friends, whatever problems may exist or arise between us, I can assure you that my associates and I will be ever ready to discuss them with you, and to take whatever steps we can to remove them. And whatever those problems may be, I can also assure you that they shrink in comparison with the great and awesome task that awaits us as free and peace-loving nations. So let us fix our attention not on those matters that vex us as neighbors, but on those issues that face us as leaders, as people. Let us look at the world in which we live and hope to go on living. The nations of the Western Hemisphere are bound together by their laws of economics as well as geography, by a common dedication to freedom as well as a common history of fighting for it, to make this entire area more secure against aggression of all kinds, and to see our sister states fulfill their hopes and needs for economic and social reform and development are surely all challenges confronting all nations and deserving of the greatest talents and resources found throughout. We cannot turn our backs in times of trouble, nor can we stand aside from its great adventure of development. For this historic task in this embattled age is not merely to defend freedom, it is to extend and strengthen its covenant to peoples of different cultures and creeds and colors, whose policy or economic system may differ from ours, but whose desire is to be free and no less fervent than our own. Through this organization of economic cooperation and development, we can pool our vast resources and skills and make available the kind of long-term capital planning and know-how without which these nations will never achieve independent and viable economies, and without which our efforts will be tragically wasted. Finally, let me say just a few words about the world in which we live. We should not misjudge the force of the challenge that we face, a force that is powerful as well as insidious, that inspires dedication as well as fear, that uses means we cannot adopt to achieve ends we cannot permit. Nor can we mistake the nature of the struggle. It is not for concessions or territory. It is not simply between different systems. It is an age-old battle for the survival of liberty itself. And our great advantage, and we must never forget it, is that the irresistible tide that began 500 years before the birth of Christ in ancient Greece is for freedom and against tyranny, and that is the wave of the future, and the iconic hand of totalitarianism can ultimately neither seize nor turn it back. In the words of Macaulay, a single breaker may recede, but the tide is coming in. So we in the free world are not without hope, we are not without friends, and we are not without resources to defend ourselves and those who are associated with us. Believing in the peaceful settlement of disputes, in the defense of human rights, if we can contain the powerful struggle of ideologies and reduce it to manageable proportions, we can proceed with the transcendent task of disciplining the controllers which shadow our lives, and of finding a widened range of common enterprises between ourselves and those who live in ignorance of truth. For in the end, we are part of one human family, and whatever the struggles that confront us, we must lose no chance to move forward towards a world of truth and freedom. At the conference table, and in the minds of men, the free world's cause is strengthened, because it is just, but it is strengthened even more by the dedicated efforts of free men and free nations. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing,